How's it going, everyone? I'm Alex. I'm a certified strength and conditioning specialist, and I'm a big fan of the movie Logan. Today, we are going to talk about the bench press, more specifically, how to align your elbows for the safest and strongest press possible. Now, you may have read the title of this video and thought, flaring my elbows out too much when bench pressing can lead to shoulder impingement, which is correct, and we'll get to that soon. This may have led you to conclude that in order to avoid flared elbows and therefore shoulder impingement, you need to tuck your elbows during the movement, which is actually incorrect. Flaring your elbows out too much places your shoulders in a vulnerable position. However, tucking your elbows will put you in a not so efficient position. So for this video, I'll go through the problems created by flared elbows, the problems created by tucked elbows, then at the end, I'll explain how to get into an optimal position for health and strength without even having to think about it. First things first, let's go over why you shouldn't let your elbows flare out. A 2016 study showed that decreasing shoulder abduction, or elbow flare, helps to decrease compressive forces on the shoulder, meaning the chances of the dreaded shoulder impingement have decreased. When the elbows flare out closer to 90 degrees in your bench press, your shoulders are forced into a more internally rotated position, causing the long head of the biceps tendon and the supraspinatus to impinge between the head of the humerus and the acromion process. The acromion process being the bony protrusion of the scapula situated directly above the upper arm. When the head of the humerus is driven up because of elbow flare, we get a closing of the subacromial space, causing the muscles and tendons I mentioned earlier to be painfully compressed, and causing the AC joint to potentially impinge as well, the AC joint being the space between the acromion and clavicle that is separated by cartilage. In addition to the compression and impingement potentially caused by flared elbows, the position also causes a pretty extreme stretch on the shoulder joint. The closer the elbows get to 90 degrees with the torso, the less range of motion comes from the elbow joint, while range of motion demands are increased at the shoulder joint. And while some stretch on the shoulders is certainly helpful for stressing the pecs, and an extreme stretch under a load probably isn't the best idea for long-term shoulder health. So let's stay away from any extremes. Okay, so clearly it's not a good idea to flare your elbows out like crazy when you bench if you care at all about long-term shoulder health. So why not tuck your elbows while you bench? Well, the answer is efficiency. Look at the position that actively tucking my elbows gets me into at the bottom of the rep. My elbows are now in front of the bar, meaning a moment arm at the elbows is created and unnecessary energy must be expended to keep the bar from collapsing backwards. At the bottom of the rep, we want stacked joints, meaning you should be able to draw a straight line from your elbow to your wrist to the bar. This is your most efficient position, and this is a position where no energy is being wasted trying to balance the bar in an awkward position. Check out this clip of me benching from the other day, and you'll actually see my body defer to this most efficient position as the fatigue of the set increases. I was making the mistake of over-tucking my elbows. However, when the weight started to feel heavy on my last rep, and when the bar began to slow down, without even thinking about it, my elbows flared out to finish off the set. I was able to maintain the inefficient tucked elbow position up until my fatigue and the fear of death created by no spotter unconsciously flared my elbows out and directly under the bar. But I wasted a ton of energy in the previous reps by twisting my elbows in front of the bar and balancing the weight in a position that isn't optimal for balance. So don't waste energy awkwardly twisting your elbows like I did here. So I've told you a lot in this video about what not to do. Now let me wrap things up by giving you suggestions to avoid the excessive elbow positions we've been talking about. As you can tell by now, wrenching your elbows in or out will create issues with shoulder health and with efficiency. So right off the bat, let's stop forcing our elbows into unnatural positions. Let them fall where they comfortably fall, and your elbows will naturally stay under the bar without your conscious thought. But this raises the question, how do I ensure my elbows aren't too flared or too tucked, even if I'm not consciously flaring or tucking them? The answer is, you need a correct grip width at setup, and you need to hit the right part of your chest with every rep. Let's address grip first. The wider your grip, the more your elbows will flare in order to stay in their intuitive position. Again, that being directly under the loaded barbell. A good general recommendation is to avoid a grip outside of 1.5 times shoulder width. With a grip wider than this, you'll be forced to flare your elbows pretty excessively, internally rotate at the shoulder, and you'll be inviting the impingement issues discussed earlier in this video. That being said, taking in your grip all the way to shoulder width will place your elbows very close to your torso, creating more movement at the elbow joint. While this is perfectly okay if added stress on the triceps at the expense of weight on the bar is the goal, think of it this way. For bodybuilders, the close grip bench decreases work on the pecs, and for powerlifters, the close grip bench limits how much weight you can press since the larger pec muscles have a lesser role in the lift. The close grip bench is an excellent accessory exercise, but let's not turn our normal bench into a close grip. So, grab the bar with a grip somewhere between 1 and 1.5 times your individual shoulder width. Favor the middle of this range and find what's comfortable for you. Now let's address where the bar touches your chest, again in relation to optimal elbow position. For most people's physical dimensions, the strongest and safest elbow position can be achieved when the bar touches the chest around the nipple line, or for females, at the bottom of the bra line. So, in summary, choose a grip between 1 and 1.5 times shoulder width, lower the bar to your nipple line, then press the weight back up. Don't worry about your elbows at all, they will naturally find their most efficient position. What's most important is now your grip and end position support an elbow position that is flared enough to be strong, but not so flared that it creates excessive shoulder stress. So that's what you should be doing with your elbows when you bench, and you should really be setting up that grip to align for, think 45 to a 75 degree angle of your elbow flaring out, this being 90, this being 0. Now that's not perfect, but it's just a good visual. Anything inside of that 45 degrees, again, you're not going to be that strong. Anything out here, you're going to be inviting those shoulder impingement issues I discussed in the video. And again, this should be a natural process. You shouldn't have to actively wrench your elbows. Your elbows are meant to flex and extend. They're not really meant to rotate much at all. That's not really their function. They should just be falling into that natural position directly under the bar, again, where no unnecessary moment arms are caused and where you are in the most efficient position. Really, the important part of this is getting your setup down. Once your setup is down, that'll be natural and you won't even have to think about it. But I wanted to address this common misconception that you need to wrench your elbows under you and tuck them real hard when you're benching in order to avoid a flared position and impingement. All you really need to do to avoid that flared position is to set up well and hit the correct part on your chest, and that'll all come naturally for you. Now, at this point of the video, like I do in every video, I'd like to scroll the names of my Patreons up on the screen and thank them for joining me over on Patreon. They gain access to a whole lot of different things. First of all, I used to do the Medich Brand Show podcast on Apple Podcasts. That moved to Patreon, and it continues over there. I think I've done 20 or 30 Patreon exclusive podcasts so far, and those continue to come out every Tuesday, sometimes Monday, but typically every Tuesday, as well as what most people are attracted to, I believe, and that's the 5 different workout programs I've written, videoed, demonstrated, provided voiceover instruction for, and thrown up on there for you guys to follow. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 week programs to get you guys building muscle, get you guys stronger, and get you guys on a plan to incorporate progressive overload into your training, really taking the thinking out of things so you can just focus on the doing side of training. That's all up on my Patreon. I'll leave a link down in my bio, but I wanted to scroll those names again. Thank everyone and let you guys know that's up and out there. With the 5 programs up and another program on the way. It's a pretty incredible resource for me to provide that all to you for what is a pretty reasonable price if you really compare it to other programs out there on the market. Regardless, I appreciate you guys stopping in for this video. I hope you learned something. I don't see this topic talked about much on YouTube, Instagram, blogs, wherever, the internet in general. So hopefully you learned something and hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it, subscribe, like, help me out. That all means a lot, helps me to grow this channel. As the YouTube kind of catches up to the Instagram, that stuff's really helpful. So I appreciate all of your support, and most importantly, I hope you learned something. And if you did, leave a comment and let me know what you want to see going forward. I am always listening, and I'm happy to take suggestions. Until next time, peace.